18 years ago, I nearly drowned. I don't remember it, but father told me the story countless times. He was Prime Minister Wei Qinfeng then, powerful and respected. But when his infant son stopped breathing and fell deathly ill, all his power meant nothing. A wandering shaman appeared at our estate and delivered a prophecy that changed everything. My yang energy was so extreme that heaven itself rejected me. I wouldn't survive past my 20th year unless I lived as a daughter. Father made an impossible choice. He dressed me in silk and jade, named me Wei Lion, and raised me as his precious daughter. Now at 18 I stood before my mirror in embroidered robes, watching father's reflection behind me. His eyes held such sorrow. Suddenly a servant burst through the doors, breathless and pale. The emperor's procession approaches. He comes to inspect the province. Father's face went white. He gripped my shoulders, his voice urgent and fright. Whatever happens, you must never let him see the truth. Emperor Yan Zhengsu arrived like a storm. Cold, battle-scarred, terrifying. He spent 5 years crushing rebellions and consolidating power. Everyone whispered that he trusted no one, especially not father, whose influence made him dangerous. During the banquet, I felt the emperor's eyes on me. I was supposed to be another simpering noblewoman, but I'd never been good at pretending. When he asked about poetry, I answered honestly, with intelligence father always warned me to hide. When he mentioned politics, I barely concealed my disdain for the games powerful men played. The emperor's expression shifted from boredom to something sharper. Interest, curiosity. I realized my mistake immediately. As the evening ended, I overheard his chief advisor whisper something chilling. Your Majesty, the Prime Minister grows too powerful. We need leverage against him. The emperor's cold gaze drifted back to me. I felt like prey beneath a hawk's stare. Then I shall take his most precious treasure, he said quietly. The imperial decree arrived at dawn. I was selected for the consort selection ceremony in the Forbidden City. The words praised my beauty and intelligence, called it an honor, but we all knew the truth. I was a hostage. Father's hands trembled as he read the golden boss scroll. I wanted to rage, to refuse, to fight, but father begged me to go, to survive, to play the role perfectly. Please, Lion, he whispered, tears in his eyes, do this for me. That night, alone in my chambers, I found a letter hidden beneath my pillow. Father's handwriting, shaking and urgent. Most of it contained advice about palace survival, but the final paragraph made my blood run cold. If you ever feel strange pains, dizziness, a draining sensation, write to me immediately. Your 20th birthday approaches, and with it a reckoning I prayed would never come. I pressed the letter to my chest, suddenly more frightened than I'd ever been. What wasn't father telling me? The Forbidden City was magnificent and terrifying. Massive red walls enclosed a world of intrigue and danger. I was assigned quarters in the consort wing, surrounded by women who smiled with poison in their eyes. The hierarchy revealed itself immediately. Consort Liu, the emperor's current favorite, looked at me like I was an insect she wanted to crush. Other candidates whispered behind silk fans, already plotting. A eunuch named Bayan approached me that first evening, offering alliance. The palace is treacherous for newcomers, Lady Wei, he said smoothly. I can help you navigate these waters for a price, of course. I studied his calculating eyes, unsure who to trust. That night I found a note slipped under my door. The characters were elegant, the message chilling. The emperor chose you to cage your father, but cages work both ways. Be careful whose trap you're really in. I burned the note, but the words haunted me. What game was I really caught in? The emperor summoned me 3 days later. I expected coldness, political maneuvering, veiled threats about father's loyalty. Instead, he asked me about philosophy. He tested my knowledge of military strategy, challenged my views on governance and justice. I forgot to be demure and obedient. I argued with him passionately, defending ideas about fairness and mercy that contradicted his iron rule. I expected anger. Instead, the emperor leaned forward, eyes bright with something I couldn't identify. You're unlike any woman I've met, he said quietly. My heart raced with fear and something else, something dangerous and unwanted. His attention felt like standing too close to fire. As I prepared to leave, the emperor spoke again. You will attend me 3 nights a week. I find your perspective refreshing. The way he looked at me made my disguise feel thinner than silk, more fragile than paper. I bowed and fled, feeling his gaze burning into my back. Consort Liu moved against me within the week. She invited me to tea ceremony with other consorts, all smiles and false warmth. I recognized the trap but couldn't refuse without causing offense. During the gathering, while servants poured tea and everyone exchanged pleasantries, I watched Consort Liu's hand move subtly over my cup. Father had trained me to recognize poisons since childhood. A prime minister's daughter needed such knowledge. I pretended to drink but didn't swallow. Later, I found Consort Liu alone in the garden. I know what you did, I said quietly. She didn't even pretend surprise. Instead, she smiled, cold and triumphant. You think you're clever, Lady Wei. I know your secret. My blood turned to ice. The way you move, the way you sit, how you argue with His Majesty like an equal. She stepped closer, voice dropping to a deadly whisper. You're not what you pretend to be. One word to the Emperor and you're dead. Panic drove me to Bayan. I had no choice but to trust someone. When I found him in a quiet corridor, I asked about his price for true alliance. His response shocked me. I already serve you, young master, he said, dropping his voice. Your father planted me in this palace years ago in case you ever needed protection here. He knew, he'd always known my truth and he'd been hiding evidence of it. Your father sent urgent word, Bayan continued grimly. You're approaching 19. If you start feeling ill, fever, dizziness, weakness, you must tell him immediately. The fear in his eyes terrified me more than Consort Liu's threats. Why, what happens if I get sick? Bayan looked away, struggling with whether to speak. Finally, he met my eyes again. He wouldn't give me details, but he said if the symptoms start, you have less than a year to live. The corridor tilted around me. I grabbed the wall for support, understanding nothing except that my time was running out. The full moon hung heavy when the emperor summoned me to walk in the gardens, away from Court's watching eyes. He became someone different, vulnerable, lonely. He spoke of betrayals, of the burden of the crown, of ruling an empire where everyone wanted something. I found myself responding honestly, sharing carefully edited stories of my own isolation. Our hands touched, neither of us pulled away. I brought you here as a hostage, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. But I find myself wanting you to stay for other reasons. His words stirred feelings I had no right to have, feelings for a man who didn't know the truth about me. As we walked back toward the palace, dizziness struck without warning. The world spun violently. I gripped the emperor's arm to keep from falling. Are you unwell? Concern filled his voice, his hand steadying me. I forced my brightest smile, fighting the weakness flooding my limbs. Just tired, your majesty, nothing more. But I knew the symptoms had begun. The arrow shattered my window at midnight. If I'd been asleep in bed instead of reading by candlelight, it would have killed me. Guards captured the assassin, but he bit down on something and died before questioning. The emperor arrived personally, fury radiating from him. He assumed political enemies targeted father through me. He assigned his personal shadow guard Lin Feng to protect me constantly. But Bai and I suspected Consort Liu. We investigated quietly, carefully. What we discovered chilled me deeper than any assassination attempt. The dead assassin bore a mark, the same symbol that had been on the warning note about cages and traps. Someone else was playing a game within games, using both the emperor's political maneuvering and Consort Liu's jealousy as cover. We're missing something, Bayan whispered as we examined the evidence. Someone wants you dead, but not for the obvious reasons. The question was who and why. And how could I survive long enough to find out? The fever struck like lightning. I woke burning, my heart racing wrong, my breath coming in gasps. I tried to reach the door but collapsed halfway. Bayan found me and sent urgent word to father. Imperial physicians swarmed my chambers, but none understood what was happening. It's like his life force is being drained, one whispered, not realizing I could hear. The emperor refused to leave my bedside. For 3 days I drifted between consciousness and delirium. In my worst moments I almost spoke in my natural voice, almost called for father using words that would reveal everything. The emperor sat beside me, wiping my fevered brow, his expression twisted with worry and something deeper. Don't you dare die on me, he whispered once, thinking I was unconscious. I need you more than I should. When I finally woke on the 4th day, weak but clear-headed, I found a letter hidden in my bedding. Father's handwriting, desperate and afraid. It's starting. We're running out of time. Stay alive until I can reach you. The Dragon Boat Festival arrived with celebration and danger. The emperor insisted I attended his side despite my recent illness, showing favoritism that scandalized the court. During the boat races, I felt at the moment when something went wrong. The boat lurched violently, deliberately capsized. Heavy robes dragged me down into dark water. I couldn't swim, couldn't breathe, couldn't surface. Strong arms grabbed me. The emperor had dived in personally without hesitation. He pulled me up, carried me toward shore. I was barely conscious, choking on water and fear. Then I felt at my outer robe sliding away, revealing the bindings beneath that flattened my chest. Through my dimming vision I saw the emperor's face, saw the exact moment he understood. His arms froze around me, his eyes widening with shock and betrayal. Lin Feng appeared instantly, covering me with a cloak, whispering urgently to the emperor. Your Majesty, not here, not now, please. But the damage was done. He knew. That night the emperor summoned me to his private chambers. His rage was terrifying. Show me, he commanded, voice like winter ice. Trembling, I unwrapped the bindings with shaking hands, revealing the truth I'd hidden for 18 years. The emperor's face showed betrayal, fury, and something else, confusion at his own feelings. You deceived your emperor, that's treason, death. But he didn't call the guards. Instead, he circled me like a predator, struggling to reconcile what he'd felt with what I was. Explain now. I told him everything I knew, that father had dressed me as a daughter for political protection to shield me from court dangers. I didn't mention the prophecy or the illness because father had never fully explained it to me. The emperor listened, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. Your father will answer for this deception. He strode to the door, shouting orders. Summon Prime Minister Wei Feng to the capital immediately, in chains if necessary. Father arrived 3 days later, hands bound, prepared to die. The throne room was packed with officials and advisors, all eager to witness the prime minister's fall. The emperor sat cold and distant on his throne. Explain, he commanded. Father did. He confessed everything, the drowning, the shaman's prophecy, the yang imbalance that would kill me before my 20th year. I dressed my son as a daughter to save his life, not to deceive your majesty, father pleaded, tears streaming. I never imagined he would enter the palace. The advisors erupted, demanding immediate execution for us both, but the emperor remained silent, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. Finally he rose. Everyone out now. When the throne room emptied, leaving only father, the emperor, and myself, the emperor's mask cracked slightly. This illness, he said quietly. It's happening now, isn't it? I nodded weakly. Then tell me everything, every detail of what the shaman said, leave nothing out. The The emperor summoned every physician in the empire. They examined me for days, confirming father's story. My yang energy was severely imbalanced and deteriorating rapidly. Most physicians simply shook their heads helpless. Then an elderly physician remembered something, an ancient text mentioning a similar case. The Tiananmen flower, he said slowly. It blooms once every 20 years in the forbidden northern mountains. It can rebalance extreme elemental energies, but he hesitated. The territory is controlled by hostile warlords. Retrieving it would be impossible. The emperor's advisors seized their opportunity. Your Majesty, the boy deceived you, they argued. Let him face natural consequences. The prime minister can sire another heir. The emperor's face could have been carved from stone. When he spoke, his voice was absolute. Prepare an expedition. We leave in 3 days. I will retrieve this flower myself. The throne room erupted in protests, but the emperor's eyes never left mine. His decision was made. The court exploded with opposition. The emperor couldn't abandon the capital for a dangerous quest to save someone who'd committed treason. His advisors demanded he execute father and me to save face. Consort Liu and her faction pushed hardest, seeing their chance to destroy father's family forever. The emperor faced the choice that would define his reign. That night he came to my chambers. I begged him not to go. I deceived you, I said desperately. Let me face the consequences. The empire needs you more than it needs me. The emperor gripped my shoulders, his fingers tight enough to bruise. I brought you here as a hostage, he said roughly. A tool to control your father. I was cruel and calculating. He paused, struggling with emotions he'd never had to voice, but somewhere during these months, his voice cracked slightly. I don't know what this is between us or what it means, but I know I'm not letting you die. He turned to Lin Feng. We leave at dawn. The emperor departed with an elite group, Lin Feng, his best general, and 2 master trackers. He left father in the capital under house arrest, with Bayan staying hidden to protect me. The journey north was brutal. Back in the palace, I deteriorated daily. The fever came and went. My heart raced irregularly. Every morning I wondered if I'd see evening. Consort Liu sensed blood in the water. She spread rumors that the emperor had abandoned the throne for a male deceiver, that he was unfit to rule. Conservative factions gained power, questioning the emperor's judgment. Then the messenger arrived, mud-splattered and exhausted. The news hit like a physical blow. The emperor's expedition had been ambushed by warlords in the northern territories. There were casualties, multiple injuries. The emperor's fate was unknown. I collapsed when I heard Bayan catching me before I hit the floor. No, I whispered, the world's spinning. No, please. But the messenger had no more information. We could only wait and pray. The emperor's uncle, Prince Regent Yanzhou, moved swiftly. With the emperor possibly dead and me incapacitated, he declared himself regent to stabilize the throne. His first act was ordering father's and my arrests for treason and witchcraft, but Bayan had prepared. Loyal guards helped me escape my chambers. Sick, weak, barely able to walk, I fled through secret passages while father was dragged to the dungeons. For days I hid in a safe house Bayan had maintained, growing weaker as my 20th birthday approached. The Prince Regent's guards searched everywhere. Consort Liu helped them, eager to see me dead. Then 5 days after the ambush, a message arrived from Lin Feng, just 4 words, but they meant everything. The emperor lives, returning. I wept with relief. But that night the fever spiked worse than ever. I collapsed in the safe house, my birthday just 3 days away. Bayan pressed a cloth to my burning forehead, whispering desperately, "Hold on, he's coming back for you, just hold on." In the northern mountains, the emperor faced the warlord who controlled the Tiananmen flower's territory. The warlord knew exactly who he was and what he needed. I'll give you the flower, the warlord said, smiling like a shark, in exchange for your public acknowledgement of the Northern Territory's independence. The demand was enormous, a massive political concession that would weaken the empire and humiliate the throne. The emperor's companions protested immediately. Your Majesty, you cannot. His general said urgently, the empire will fracture, your uncle will use this against you. The emperor stared at the Tiananmen flower in the warlord's hand. It glowed softly, otherworldly and beautiful. He thought of me dying in the capital, counting down to my 20th birthday, waiting for rescue that might come too late. You have your independence, he said clearly. His general gasped in shock. Your Majesty, the empire is nothing, the emperor interrupted, his voice hard as iron, without someone worth ruling it for. He took the flower and turned away, ignoring his companions' horrified expressions. The emperor's party raced back, but they were still days away. In the safe house I was dying. My 20th birthday arrived with gray dawn light. My body was failing, the heavens' rejection reaching its conclusion. Father, freed by loyal forces who'd stormed the dungeons, reached my side. He held me, crying openly. Father, I whispered weakly, tell me the truth. Why did the shaman say this would happen? Father's face crumpled. He finally revealed the words he'd hidden for 20 years. The shaman said when your 20th year arrives, the balance must be restored by dawn of the next day or the rejection becomes permanent. Your spirit will separate from your body. How long? I asked, already knowing. Hours, Father whispered. You have until midnight tonight. The sun was setting when Bayan burst through the door, his face wild with hope and fear. The emperor's been spotted, he's at the city gates. Then his expression fell. But the Prince Regent has ordered them sealed. No one enters until dawn. The emperor reached the capital gates to find them barred. The prince regent's messenger delivered terms through the gates speaking whole. His excellency offers generous terms. Abdicate in favor of the prince regent and you may enter to save your plaything. The emperor's companions were exhausted, wounded from the brutal journey. A direct assault on the massive gates would take hours we didn't have. The emperor stared at the sealed gates, then at the Tiananmen flower glowing in his hand. Lin Feng, he said quietly, you taught me once that an emperor who won't risk everything for what matters isn't an emperor worth following. He handed the flower to his shadow guard, whose eyes widened in understanding and horror. There's a water channel beneath the eastern wall, small, dangerous, half-flooded. Only one person can fit through at a time. Before anyone could stop him, the emperor stripped off his armor and outer robes. Get this flower to Wei Lion, he commanded. That's an imperial order. Then he dove into the freezing black water and disappeared. The underwater channel was a nightmare. Pitch black, narrow enough that the emperor's shoulders scraped stone, with sections where he had to hold his breath until his lungs screamed. He nearly drowned twice, surfacing in tiny air pockets, gasping and choking. In the safe house I stopped breathing. Father pressed his ear to my chest, found nothing, and sobbed my name. The imperial physicians who'd snuck in to help shook their heads sadly. Outside, Lin Feng and loyal forces began their assault on the gates, creating chaos and distraction. The emperor burst from the water inside the palace grounds, gasping, bleeding from where he'd scraped against stone. He didn't stop. He ran through the palace, dripping and wild-eyed. Confused guards tried to stop him. He cut through them without mercy, without hesitation. In my room, Father whispered, I'm sorry, my son, I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. My eyes were closed, my chest was still. Father laid me down gently, covering my face with silk, and wept. The emperor crashed through the safe house doors like a hurricane. He saw me lying still, silk covering my face, and the world stopped. Then he was at my side, ripping away the silk, forcing the Tiananmen flower into my mouth. A physician rushed forward. Your Majesty, it must be prepared properly, brewed into medicine. There's no time, the emperor roared. Ancient texts said the flower itself held the power. He tilted my head back, pressed the petals to release their essence, then breathed into my mouth, forcing the flower's energy into my lungs. Father watched, hope and despair warring on his face. For an eternal moment nothing happened. Then I gasped. My body arched as the flower's power flooded my system. My eyes flew open, glowing with golden light. The yang energy that had been killing me surged, wild and chaotic, then slowly balanced. The room filled with radiance that faded gradually like a sunset. I breathed, my heart beat steady and strong. The emperor collapsed beside me, shaking with exhaustion and relief. You're alive, he whispered, tears tracking through the dirt on his face. You're alive. I recovered over the next day while the emperor stayed at my side, refusing to leave. But Prince Regent Yan Zhou made his final move. He called an emergency court session with all officials present. He stood before the assembled court and publicly accused the emperor of abandoning the throne for a male deceiver, of making treasonous concessions to northern warlords, and of being unfit to rule. He had evidence, documents, witnesses, testimony from conservative factions horrified by rumors of the emperor's unnatural attachment. He demanded immediate abdication. The empire cannot be ruled by an emperor who has lost his senses, Yan Zhou declared. The court murmured agreement. Then the doors burst open. The emperor entered, still wearing his travel-stained clothes, his hand steady on my arm as I walked beside him. The court gasped in shock. You want to know what I conceded? The emperor's voice rang out cold and clear. You want to know why I risked everything? His eyes found his uncle across the throne room. I'll tell you. The emperor revealed everything before the entire court. How he'd taken me as a hostage to control Father. How he discovered my true gender and the reason for the deception. How he'd chosen to save my life despite the massive political cost. I went north not as your emperor playing politics, he declared, voice carrying to every corner of the room. I went as a man trying to save someone who matters to him, and I would do it again. The court erupted in chaos. His uncle demanded his abdication. Then Father stepped forward. In a stunning move, he knelt not to the Prince Regent but to the emperor. You saved my son when you had every right to execute us both, Father said clearly. You showed mercy when power demanded cruelty. That is an emperor worth serving. One by one other officials knelt. The general who'd accompanied the emperor north, Lin Feng, loyal ministers who'd grown tired of palace games, but a conservative minister stood firm. What of your attachment to this boy? He demanded. The law forbids male consorts, the people will never accept. Then the law will change, the emperor interrupted. He turned to me, his eyes holding mine. I'm creating a new position, imperial companion, my equal in private, my advisor in public. And if the empire cannot accept their emperor choosing truth over deception, then perhaps they need a new emperor after all. The throne room fell absolutely silent. The challenge hung in the air, waiting. 3 months passed. The political storm settled gradually. Prince Regent Yan Zhou was exiled to a remote province. Conservative factions, seeing the emperor's unwavering resolve and father's complete loyalty, grudgingly accepted the new order. Now I stood with the emperor on the palace balcony, watching the sunset paint the capital gold. I wore robes that were neither male nor female, something uniquely mine representing my new position. Do you ever regret it? I asked quietly. The political cost, the northern concessions, the scandal. The emperor was silent for a moment. Then he took my hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable months ago. I spent 5 years building an empire through fear and control, he said. I kept your father in check with hostages. I trusted no one. I was powerful and completely alone. He turned to face me fully. You taught me that real strength isn't holding power through fear, it's having something worth losing power for. Below us, father met with officials, respected now as the emperor's closest ally. Bayan served openly as my assistant. Consort Liu lived quietly in a distant temple. I smiled, squeezing the emperor's hand. Father hid my gender to save my life. You risked your throne for the same reason. I'm extraordinarily lucky or extraordinarily troublesome. Both, the emperor said with rare humor. Definitely both. As the sun set, I thought of the shaman's prophecy. I lived in balance now, seen for who I truly was, no more hiding behind silk and false names. I was myself completely, finally, freely, and the emperor saw me, knew me, and chose me anyway. The story ended where it began, with a choice to save a life. But this time it wasn't about hiding or deception. It was about truth, courage, and love that defied heaven's rejection and earth's expectations.